everyone. Today we're going to look at the Maths GCSE Edexcel June 2022 paper 1, which is the non-calculator paper. Let's start with the first one, which is to solve an inequality 7x minus 27 is less than 8. So we can think of inequalities as very similar to equations, but rather than the equal sign, we have less than or equal to, greater or equal to signs. So let's take a look what we have here. So the very first step is to isolate everything that have x on the left-hand side and everything else on the right-hand side. So we can see that minus 27 is on the left-hand side where only things that have x should be. So then we need to do the opposite operation. So opposite operation of taking away 27 is to add it. So we add 27 on both sides and we get 7x is less than 8 plus 27, which is the same as 7x is less than 35. Now, again, opposite operation, I want to divide by what's in front of x, so that's 7. So I just have that x is less than 35 divided by 7, which we know is equal to 5. So the answer here is that x is less than 5. And we're done with that question, which is for 2 marks. Okay, now that was question 1. Let's take a look at question 2, which is to write 124 as a product of its prime factors. Again, this is a 2-mark question, and all we need to do here is to start with asking ourselves, first of all, is that an even number? As soon as we see an even number, we definitely know it's divisible by 2. Then we do 124 divided by 2, which would give me 62. Again, same question, is that an even number? Yes, it is. If it's an even number, again, we know it's divisible by 2. So we write 2, and then what multiplied by 2 would give us 62, or we can just do 62 divided by 2, which gives me 31. And I'm done because 31 is a prime number. So then I now have the answer. That's 2, 2, and 31. So now I know the prime factors are 2, 2, 31. So I can write 124 as 2 times 2 times 31. Or alternatively, we can say 2 to the power 2 times 31. And we're done with question 2, which again, as I said, is for 2 marks. Okay, so now that we're done with question 2, let's take a look at question 3, which says that a delivery company has a total of 160 cars and vans. The number of cars to the number of vans is 3 to 7. And we also know that each car and van uses electricity or diesel or petrol. And in addition, we know what are the proportions of those. So an 8 of the cars use electricity, 25% of the cars use diesel, and the rest of the cars use petrol. We asked to work out the number of cars that use petrol. So first, we actually need to figure out how many cars there are, because we know the total of vehicles that we have, so cars and vans, but not only how many are the cars. But we can figure out that using the ratio that we have between cars and vans. So we know that ratio is 3 to 7. So whenever I know what the total is, I can just figure out how many total parts. So total parts here are equal to 10. And I know that the total vehicles equals to 160. So if I want to figure out how many vehicles there are in one part only, I need to divide the total vehicles by the number of parts, would give me 16 vehicles per part. But then remember that we have cars to be 3 groups or 3 parts. So then the total cars are 3 times, and remember what we just figured out, that there's 16 vehicles per part. That means 3 times 16, which when we calculate, we get 48. So now we know the total of the cars are 48, and we can continue now using the proportions in order to figure out how many cars use petrol. So we know that an eighth of the cars use electricity. Every single time we kind of have of, that means like multiply. So I have like kind of 8 times 48, because the number of cars are 48. 48 divided by 8, this is 6 cars that use electricity. Now that we know how many use electricity, we also need to figure out how many use diesel. So I know that's at 25%, but remember, 25% is just 25 over 100 times, again, the number of cars, which are 48. So one very important thing that we can do here to save ourselves from long calculation is to know that 25% is just a quarter. So we can just say a quarter of 48. So that means just 48 divided by 4, which would give me 12 cars that use diesel. We are almost done because we know that the cars can use electricity, diesel, or petrol. But if I know the electricity and the diesel and I know how many cars there are together, I can figure out the petrol ones. So that would be 48 minus the electricity ones minus the diesel ones. So that would just give me 48 minus, we know that minus 6 minus 12 give me minus 18. So 48 minus 18, that's just 30 cars that use petrol. And I'm done because that would be my answer as I'm asked how many cars use petrol. This was question 3, where the total is 5 marks. Okay, now let's take a look at question 4. So the first part asks us to write 1.63 times 10 to the power minus 3 as an ordinary number. So my very first starting point is to just write down the number that I'm starting with, so 1.63. And then I need to multiply this by 10 to the power minus 3. Every single time that I have a negative power, I go to the left because I'm essentially dividing by 10 to the power 3. So that means that my number would become smaller. And all I need to do is jumps to the left. How many jumps to the left is whatever the power is. So it's minus 3, so that basically tells me 3 jumps to the left. So we always start from where the decimal point is, and I do 1 jump, 2 jumps, 3 jumps, and I put my new decimal point. If there are empty spaces, as we have here, we just fill them with zeros, and then I write 0 in front of the decimal point because we definitely know the number is 0 point something. So then this would just be 0.00163. Of course, we only can have one decimal point, and that's this one. We just get rid of that one. So the answer would be 0.00163. Part A is for 1 mark. Let's take a look at part B, which is for another 1 mark. So this time we actually need to do the opposite thing from ordinary number to a standard form. So remember that for standard form, I always need to have a number that's between 1 and 10. So looking into that one, my number would definitely need to be 4.38 because neither 0.438 would work, nor 43.8, nor 438. So what we have now is to figure out 10 to what power I need to multiply. How I do that one, I start with 4.38, so the number that I need to have, and I need to copy the number of zeros I have after that, so that's just 3 zeros. Now my goal is to figure out how many jumps I need to do to reach the end of that kind of number. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I multiply by 10 to the power 5, I would get to basically my ordinary number that I'm given. So that means that in standard form, this number would be 4.38 times 10 to the power 5. Again, why 5? Because I need to do 5 jumps in order to get to the end of the number. Okay, let's take a look at part C, which is a 2-mark question. And we need to work out what's 4 times 10 to the power 3 times 6 times 10 to the power minus 5. So the very first step to doing those scenarios is to multiply 4 and 6. So I would get 4 times 6, which is 24. And then I can figure out, using the power rule, that 10 to the power 3 times 10 to the power minus 5. Remember, when I have the same number raised to some powers and we're multiplying them, I just need to add the powers. So here it would be 3 minus 5, which would give me 10 to the power minus 2. So that means it's 24 times 10 to the power minus 2. But actually, that's not in a standard form, because remember what we said in part B, the number in the standard form should be between 1 and 10. So that definitely means that my number should be 2.4. And the question is now, what happens to the power? Essentially, I can represent the 24 as 2.4 times 10. So that's just this bit that I have here. And then I just copying times 10 to the power minus 2. But then combining these two, remember I can represent the 10 as 10 to the power 1. I add the power, so that means it would be 2.4 times 10 to the power 1 minus 2, which is just minus 1. And this is it. That would be my answer, that as a standard form, this multiplication would look like 2.4 times 10 to the power minus 1. And that's question 4, which altogether gives us 4 marks. So now let's take a look at question 5, where we're given a regular hexagon and a regular pentagon. So why it's important that these shapes are regular is because we know that in any regular shapes, all the sides are equal and that all the angles are equal as well. And we need to figure out what's the size of the angle marked X here. So one important thing that we need to know here is that around the point, the angle is 360. So that means that if I can figure out what that one is, and also what's this angle, I know that the sum of these 3 angles would give me 360. But they're just the interior angles of a regular hexagon and the interior angle in a regular pentagon. Remember, we can use the formula where the sum of interior angles in any shape is just equal to n minus 2 times 180, where n is the number of sides. So for the hexagon, n is equal to 6 because we have 6 sides, so 6 minus 2, 4 times 180, that would give me 720 degrees. But remember, that's the sum of the interior angles, and I just want only one of them. But because we know that this is a regular hexagon, all the angles are equal, so that would be 720 degrees divided by 6, because there's 6 angles. When I divide by 6, I just get 8 individual 1 is 120 degrees, and I can write it down on the diagram. Now, we need to do exactly the same steps, but for the pentagon. So for the pentagon, I know that there are 5 sides, so that means n minus 2 would be 5 minus 2, which is 3, times 180, which would give me 540 degrees is the sum of the interior angles. Again, that's a regular shape, a regular pentagon, so I need to divide by the number of angles. So that's 540 divided by 5 to figure out what each interior angle is, and I get 108 degrees, which I can write on the diagram as well. So now I know that X plus 120 plus 108, that's again, remember these are the 3 angles around that green point that I have here, and they need to sum up to 360. So 120 plus 108 is just 228 degrees. So I just need to take 228 away from 360, which would give me 132 degrees. And I'm done because I'm exactly asked to find the angle marked with X, which would be 132 degrees here. And that's a 3-mark question. I hope that everything's clear from those first 5 questions. Make sure to subscribe for more.